are certain analog horror creators or internet horror creators that, just work for some people, that you just love, through and through. As they change, as they evolve, you just can't stop loving the things they put out. And today we're going to be talking about a smaller project from one of those such creators for me, and that would be M4NTICOR. If you are not familiar, M4NTICOR is the creator behind the wildly popular and beloved analog horror series, the Monument Mythos. And, this is a series I have not been shy about loving. I've never made a dedicated Monument Mythos video on this channel for reasons I will get into in a moment. But I have never hesitated to talk about how much that series means to me, and how I think it's one of the best ever made. My M4NTICOR makeshift plush usually sits behind me here with a crown on because she truly is one of the queens of analog horror. Today, she's sitting right here with me because you're the star of the show, diva. But we are not talking about Monument Mythos today. We're talking about the newer, shorter series. Now, who am I? Why does it matter? My name is Glitchwitch.jpg. I make videos about internet horror, analog horror, digital horror, creepypastas, ARGs, internet urban legends, and sometimes survival horror video games. I just made a video at the Silent Hill ARG. Go check it out. It's very long. Someone commented, Glitchwitch movie dropped, and they were right. It's over 2 hours long. This video better not be that long. Analog horror is probably my favorite thing to cover. I love it. It's why I started doing this channel because, the first video I made was a Silent Hill video, but the reason I kept doing this is because I love analog horror so much. I think it's a very underrepresented art form. I will say, snaps to YouTube, they just put out a video on the YouTube channel honoring analog horror, which I think is really awesome. I have a lot of issues with it as well because of the people not highlighted. M4NTICOR and Monument Mythos were left off, and the Mandela catalog was left off, as well as Gemini Home Entertainment. So that's shocking to me, but Urban Spook was on there. But Gemini Home Entertainment wasn't. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. That I could make a whole video about separate. But, love analog horror, think it's an underrated art form, and the Monument Mythos is truly one of the best examples of why analog horror should be respected as an art form. I don't even know if at this point Monument Mythos should be considered analog horror. It's one of those things where we just group them all in together because it's easier to do that. But some of the best storytelling in the genre comes from the Monument Mythos. But it's also equally funny and silly and heartbreaking and scary, and it's wonderful. But the reason why I have never been able to sit down and make a video about the Monument Mythos is it's deeply, deeply dense. I would say the best YouTuber coverage I have ever seen on the Monument Mythos is Wentagoon, and his videos on the Monument Mythos are literally hours long, and even he struggles to get through the lore, so I get it. I get why he struggled with that one. It's one of those things where, as I've been doing this channel for the past year, I almost covered Monument Mythos Modern Day a few times, but, and I'm going to get into this a lot more later, it's no longer canon and is no longer on M4NTICOR's channel. All of the Monument Mythos Season 3 and the spin-off Modern Day have been removed from M4NTICOR's channel and are no longer considered canon. They have been archived with M4NTICOR's blessing. So that made it really difficult to cover because, to me, Season 3 at least, I'm dicey on Modern Day, but Season 3 was very important to the entire story for me. It meant a lot to me, so it's hard for me to talk about it with that no longer being canon. I've thought about doing like a breakdown of Virginia Arnoldson. I may still do that in the future. I've sat down to try to do it. It's just a lot. It involves a lot of research and a lot of lore. So I finally was able to sit down and watch Bodies of the Early Universe, which is a newer, shorter series by Manticore, post-Monument Mythos. Don't get me wrong, it's still heavy, it's still dense, it's still hard to understand, but because it is so short, I could easily wrap my head around it a little quicker, and it's just new and different, and I'm super excited to see Manticore go in this direction. So I haven't seen a lot of like YouTubers talking about this series. I really only ever see Monument Mythos coverage and Nixon verse coverage, which to me is Monument Mythos. It's the spinoff of Monument Mythos. So I thought that I would go ahead and we would just talk about it and analyze it. And I think that there's a lot going on here that is important to analog horror on the whole, is important to internet horror and internet creation on the whole, and just the relationship between a creator and their audience. So I think, you know, as a analog horror, internet horror, like analysis and reaction channel, it puts me in an interesting position to talk about a series like this. And there's some hard truths and hard questions, I think, that are presented within this series I think are important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a quick summary, and then I'm going to go into like my analysis and just overall what I think, like a review, I guess, of the series. Now let me warn you, this is one of those things, if you're familiar with Manticore's work at all, you know that my summary is going to make no sense if you haven't seen the material. So what I would truly recommend, if you have not seen Kill the Body, it's like 20 minutes long total. It's linked in the description. Give it a watch, and you may not understand what the hell's going on. Average Manticore experience the first time around. But if you've seen it, then my summary might help you fill in some gaps. But if you just listen to my summary and look at the visuals on the screen with me just talking over them, it's going to be very confusing to you. So please go watch that. Support Manticore. And when you're done, come back here, and I'll give a quick summary, and then we'll get into what I think this is all about. Okay. Go. Shoo. Watch it. Oh my goodness, you're back. Wasn't that a lovely 20 minutes you just spent? So many beautiful colors. So much philosophy. We're getting smarter over here on glitchwitch.jpg. Just to summarize, there are 3 videos. We're going to start with the first video, which is called Bodies of the Early Universe, the titular title of the entire series. Right out the bat, we're introduced to the concept of these bodies of the early universe, which are things that exist before life itself, essentially what brought about the universe. And from these, I'm referring to them as like conceptual beings because they're represented pretty much just by circles in the void. The universe is born from them. And our narrator, who we later find out is a man named Ernesto, he explains that he can't name them because if he named them, it would reduce them to something that humans can understand, which they are not within human understanding. So it's like belittling to give them names. And then he describes the bodies of the early universe as his children and humans as their toys, and they care very little what happens to their toys. At the very end of the video, we are asked, what are you in all of this? So the next video is called Voices of the Bodies of the Early Universe. And we start out with a signal referred to as the wow signal that reads, more voice, arrive same speaker, still more voice. Ernesto muses that there seems to be no rhyme or reason to the destruction of elements of the universe, but that everything remains cohesive despite this. He compares the human relationship to nature with the body's relationship to humanity, indiscriminate destruction for our own gain. He again refers to the bodies as children and claims they keep us alive and torment us simply for entertainment. Again, we are asked, what are you in all this? And then the final video is called Kill the Body, and it's the longest of the 3. And we are presented with 3 steps to kill the body. Step 1 is recognize, and for the first time in the series, we're shown Earth. We're shown mundane, normal things like a dripping faucet, signage, a wrecked car, and a grave. We find out that Ernesto's family has been dead for several years, and I think that that may have happened in a car wreck. Perhaps those images we saw earlier are referencing this. Maybe it could have been a bad rainstorm, thus the water, car wreck, and then shown a grave. That's just me theorizing. I know it's not time for them yet, but bear with me here. Suffering from this loss, Ernesto turns to the military and joins the Space Force, which I think that's classic Manticore, throwing the Space Force into all of this. This is pretty much a pretty serious and, like, not silly series, but that's classic Manticore. Step 2 is react. And we see Ernesto's psych evaluation that we're not supposed to look at. It's just for Ernesto to look at, but we're getting a peep. It's apparent that he is consumed by the thoughts of Space Force and the death of his family. And he explores his parents' office, and we can see that there was an entire familial interest in space exploration, so we can assume that's why he has just dove headfirst into wanting to join the Space Force. And the psych eval was concerning, so they place Ernesto into something called the Early Universe Research Outpost, or EURO. And this is essentially what we've been seeing this whole time, is Ernesto observing the bodies of the early universe in the earlier videos. So this almost serves as a prequel. Ernesto grows envious of the bodies as he spends more time observing them, wishing to abandon time and humanity. And then we're met with the final step, which is step 3, kill the body. Ernesto's psych examiner explains he has an incredible amount of potential for the Space Force in every way. He's intelligent, physically strong, and a capable leader. His mental exam barred him from traditional military experience due to his ongoing existential crisis and detachment. He is sent to EURO so that he can be monitored without his knowledge. We are asked for a final time, what are you in all this, and given the 3rd signal. Voice truth, voice threat, witch. Okay, my goodness, that's a lot and also not very much all at the same time. This is a very vague series. I wouldn't say there's as much of a linear plot to this as there is to something like Monument Mythos, but Monument Mythos is also like a lot longer. It's like hours of videos. This is 20 minutes. I have a very specific read of this, but I do want to preface this by saying this is my read. I think that this is one of those works of art that truly, there are a lot of angles to read this. I think it's very much open to interpretation, and I'm going to talk about Manticore's work in a way that maybe sounds like I'm definitively stating things about her, but I want you to know this is just me theorizing. I don't want to present it like I know Manticore or like I understand where she is coming from, what her thought process is. I want to avoid that. I don't want to sound parasocial, anything like that. This is just purely analysis. Okay, I had to say that before I started this. When I was watching this, there was a line in the second video that really just jumped out and like punched me in the face. And that line is, the creation of destruction is creation.
The creation of destruction is creation.
To me, this phrase is emblematic of Manticore's entire creative output. If you're not familiar, throughout Manticore's YouTube career, she is known for changing up her work, archiving, re-uploading, moving narrative order, and then sometimes fully deleting her work to a point where it can get a little confusing for the viewer on what's canon, what's not, and it creates a weird dynamic. Her biggest series is the Monument Mythos, and that's where we've seen most of, these changes, because that was the longest running series on her channel, ran for about 3 years. This deletion and changing around within Monument Mythos had serious, like, plot implications. It really shook up the entire canon of the series and experience of watching the series, because she completely deleted season 3, which was the final season, and the spin-off series Monument Mythos Modern Day. And this was with pretty much little to no warning. It just was gone. She said something vague about it had to do with personal reasons regarding her deceased father, who she had dedicated most of the Monument Mythos to, but specifically these deleted seasons, and that she was dealing with, you know, the memory of her father and maybe some not so good things that she was not aware of. Again, I don't know details. I do not know specifics. It is not my place to comment on this person's personal life and their family. I am just regurgitating what they have said on their community page and things like that. This is a difficult thing because I can empathize, obviously, with Manticore wanting to get rid of these because they're a sore spot. Manticore is associating them with something that she doesn't want to think about. But, on the other hand, these videos have been put out into the world to a large audience, to a loyal audience, who has found these videos to be the opposite of what perhaps the creator is finding them to be. And I am one of these people. The 3rd season of Monument Mythos means, like, a lot to me. It has helped me personally through, like, very dark times in my personal life. And it's kind of a bummer that it's not canon anymore. Now, once I found out it was archived, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. You know, it's fine if it's not canon. I just want to be able to watch it because it brings me joy. So I know some people are still pressed about it not being canon, but the fact that it's, like, archived and that Manticore is saying it shouldn't be archived, I'm chill, I'm fine. But regardless, it creates this weird situation where both parties are correct. Like, Manticore is correct for wanting to revoke her own work. It is her work, but the audience is also rightfully upset for, you know, having this thing that was given to them taken away from them, right? This concept of the creation of destruction is creation is because you're creating an entirely new thing just by the act of removing something. Like, the Monument Mythos has now been changed. Even though there was a point in time where all we had was seasons 1, 2 in the Nixonverse, and 3 in Modern Day didn't exist yet, now that those have come out and left, you're going to view the entire series differently than you would have before those were taken away, if that makes sense. So it is an interesting concept, and just the general way that Manticore has gone about kind of repeatedly changing the layout and the setup of their series, it does create a new experience, but it is destroying an old experience at the same time. So I just thought that line was very emblematic of the creative process that I have witnessed from this creator, which I think is very interesting. Just to touch more on this kind of weird symbiotic relationship of artist and audience, that to me is what is happening in Bodies of the Early Universe. That is how I read this. Artists and audiences can have very tenuous relationships. Audiences can be very demanding and kind of unrelenting, and they can forget that the artists that they love are real human beings and not just content machines, especially internet artists, because, like I said, sometimes there's an inherent, you know, lack of respect when it comes to a YouTuber versus someone making a short film or a feature film or a TV show, when sometimes, you know, the storytelling is better than some of the things you see on TV, but because of the platform, inherently it's respected less, which I would hope most people consistently watching analog horror would carry the respect for these creators, but of course we see that they don't. On the other hand, artists can make decisions that confuse and upset their viewers, and of course that's their right to do what they want with their art, but, you know, you can't really get mad when someone says, hey, why did you do that? Because, you know, audiences start to feel like they are part of this entire thing, and in a way they are, but it's not up to them what happens. Then you get into like fan service territory, and that's never good, really. It never is, at least in my opinion. I can't think of a single instance where fan service worked out. But in this case, I believe Ernesto is the stand-in for the artist, and the children are the audience. And when I say the artist, I don't mean necessarily Manticore. I mean the abstract concept of the artist. And when I say the children, I don't mean me and you that watch Monument Mythos. I mean the abstract concept of the audience, right? I don't want y'all to think I'm shitting on Manticore here. I'm not. I loved this series, and I love their work. The children just take and use Ernesto, or humanity in this case, but without them, there is no point, there is no existence, there is no point, right? And Ernesto grows tired of living as a human, and he wants to live freely like the children, but he'll never be able to do that. It's just not possible. I think that for the first time in at least her YouTube career that we've seen, this was something Manticore truly made for herself, not for her father, not for us. It felt deeply personal and cathartic to me, and I think the vagueness of that allows it to feel very personal to others as well. Like, I'm sure you may have a different interpretation of this because it is so vague. You can kind of attach whatever you want to it. This is just what was hitting me in the face. The repeated question at the end of every video is, what are you in all this? And I think that's truly asking us, what are you in all this? Are you an active participant? How are you contributing to this? Do you feel like you are part of it? Are you just sitting back ready to tear, things to shreds? Are you encouraging? Are you helping it grow? Are you sharing it? Are you, an audience can mean so many things. And I think, Manticore and most analog horror creators are very aware that they, would not be where they are without their audience. That the audience is the consistent thing that keeps coming back, that allows them to grow, allows their art to be seen, and in some cases is, supporting financially. I don't know Manticore's situation, but I know some analog horror creators are being supported financially by their series, which is amazing, but that puts some pressure on pleasing the children, right? So I think that that's an interesting question, because there's no answer. There's no one answer to what are you in all of this. Everyone has a different answer. You could criticize me because what am I in all of this? I'm taking other people's content and making content about it in a way. Sometimes that's something I feel very guilty about, especially when I show the entire series, and that's taking views from another series, from an actual series where they created it. And I try not to do that very much, but sometimes it's hard to do it without doing it. And I'm a small channel. I know I'm not nerfing views from the Mandela catalog, right? They don't need me. They don't need me to succeed. But some of the smaller series I cover, I feel a little bad when that happens. But at the same time, I hope that I am exposing people to these different things, and I see cases where I am. So it's a weird line where, my answer to what are you and all this is very different than someone who just passively watches and doesn't comment, doesn't engage, but still really likes the series. So it's very existential. Get why Ernesto is freaking out and failed his psyche eval. I probably would too. Internet artists and creators are put in a very weird position that Hollywood directors and screenwriters don't really get, because they feel closer to us than someone in Hollywood does, right? They're just another person behind the screen. They reply to our tweets sometimes. They acknowledge us. They like our comments. But that doesn't mean they're your friend. They're not your friend. There are rare instances where they're ever going to be your friend. They are just an artist that you respect, and you need to respect that boundary. And I'm not saying specifically you watching. I'm saying the royal you. But I think that can put artists in a really uncomfortable position. And on the other hand, leaving the parasocialness, people can also be mean because they think, well, you're just some YouTuber, I can shit on you. You know, you're not a real artist. You just make YouTube videos, which is bullshit. It's people adapting to the medium. If you don't think that the directors of the Blair Witch Project wouldn't have made an analog horror series if that was 30 years later, you're stupid. It's literally just an evolution of the art form. So I am happy to see things like YouTube's YouTube channel acknowledging analog horror, and seeing things like, you know, the Creepypasta show Channel Zero happening, and, you know, the Backrooms movie, like, all steps in the right direction. But just because some people, like Kane Pixels, are getting, you know, the credibility, that may not leak over to other people like Manticore or, you know, like Gemini Home Entertainment and other things like that. I think all these analog and digital horror creators that we love so much should be respected as real filmmakers, real animators. Just like I think, you know, the authors of our great creepypastas are authors. They have written literature. And yes, not every creepypasta is literature, and I don't think every analog horror series is art. But I think what Manticore has provided us with is art, and is storytelling on a Hollywood caliber. So why not respect it as such? You know, this series overall serves as a great reminder that these artists that we love and respect so much, you know, even on a normal, respectful level, like I hope that that is the energy I give out to the creators that I talk about, that, you know, they're not our friends, but they are real people who do want to create for us, do want to make us smile, do want to impact us, but at the end of the day, they owe us nothing. And the same energy can be repeated back. We don't owe them anything either. If you are upset with the direction a series goes, walk away. You don't have to leave a mean comment. You don't have to be critical for no reason and just shit on someone. Just walk away and stop watching. I think that's the responsibility of the audience as well, unless something is straight up harmful, mean, rude, cruel to people. Don't get me wrong, you've heard me say things about Urban Spook in the past. I stand by those statements. But there's certain series that I just don't like. And you know what? I'm not going to talk about them on this channel because it's not going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit the creator or their fans. There's no point. Just walk away. I think that, yeah, of course, when someone chooses to create something and share it, you open yourself up to criticism. But the way that people dogpile on the internet often leads creators to just disappear, leave, and never make anything again. And I think that's a shame, and I think that's a waste of talent and potential just because some assholes online were bullies. And, you know, I think that Bodies is just a very vague, you know, 10,000 feet in the air view of this. I don't think this is Manticore being like, be nice to me or I'm leaving the internet. That is not the vibe I get at all. That is not the vibe I get from their community posts or anything like that. I think it's just a very vague, broad musing on the really weird relationship between the audience and the artist. So again, I don't want to sound parasocial in any of this. I am meaning all of this to be very vague, you know, generic artists, generic audience, but as it relates to the internet, because that's what we're talking about here, right? It's the internet. We're always talking about the internet. My tagline says internet horror history and analysis. Does it not? It might say analysis and history. I don't remember the order. Whoop. So that's what I view this series to be about. And again, I would love to hear what you think, because I think it's very vague and can mean so many different things. You know, but I do think it's something personal to Manticore because it involves, like, death of a family, which is something they've been very open about dealing with, and things like that. But please tell me what you think below. But I'm going to get on to just my general review, I guess, of the series, what I think. Just truly personal opinions. If you haven't been able to tell, I did a Bodies of the Early Universe makeup look. The pearls on my face, those are the bodies. The copious amount of blush on my face, that's the early universe. Oh, y'all, we had a hurricane like a week ago. I've lost track of time. I'm going crazy, and I haven't had a chance to shove this much makeup on my face in a second, so I took the opportunity and I ran with it. So, I really found Bodies of the Early Universe to be a breath of fresh air post Monument Mythos Modern Day. I don't want to, like, talk about Modern Day too much because it's no longer canon, but I will just say it was not for me. I spoke about that a little bit on my analog horror tier list video. Just didn't really work for me. And that's why I could have made a video about it while it was running, but I just kind of didn't want to. I didn't really have anything to say. It just wasn't for me. But this had a really fresh aesthetic and presentation to it that excited me because it was very different from what we have seen from Manticore before, but still felt quintessentially Manticore with the kind of very reverby monologues and the big typography. Y'all know I love typography. I love the funky ass typography in the second and third entries to this series. It's so strange and weird, but it's groovy. I like it. It's both really simple visually, but also very complex, and it's almost hypnotizing. Like the gradients and the movement of all the colors and the circles that I assume to be the bodies, the children. It sucks you in, and then you just kind of get into a trance listening to Ernesto or the Examiner in the final video. The look and feel of the live action segments, which was very small, but in the third entry in Kill the Body, I really liked. That was my main issue with Monument Mythos Modern Day, is the live action was like, whoa, where did this come from? And I think that's naturally going to happen in any analog horror. When you don't have live action and then you all of a sudden include live action, it's jarring. Same thing happened with the Mandela Catalog, Volume 4. Everyone was like, there's people moving, not just pictures. So it just didn't work for me, but I really liked the look of the little bit of live action in this, and I think it fit because it was separating Earth from Euro and the bodies of the early universe in space. You know, they were very distinct sections, but it all worked together visually, so I really liked that, and I look forward to see how Manticore incorporates live action in future work. Of course, I can't make a video about Manticore's work without a round of applause for the incredible musical stylings of AJCW. Well, the greatest. Truly the greatest working musician in analog horror. I believe that with every fiber of my being. I covered their work extensively in my Music of Analog Horror video because they're really the best to do it. I think they're the best composer working in analog horror. They did all of the Monument Mythos original score. They worked a little bit on the Mandela Catalog. These two work so well together. It's just one of those examples of a composer and a filmmaker meshing perfectly. This series would not be what it is without the music. And, you know, the visuals just complement the score so much. So I cannot say enough praise for AJCW. Thank you for your incredible, incredible music. To me, it reminds me one of the greatest working composer and filmmaker pairings is Peter Greenaway and Michael Nyman. Peter Greenaway is not for everyone, I will say that, but if you like some weird kind of freaky shit, Peter Greenaway is an incredible filmmaker, and almost all of his films are scored by Michael Nyman, who Michael Nyman also did the score for Gattaca, which is very beloved. But they just work together so well, and this is a comparative relationship to me, so I hope they keep working together because I live, so please support AJCW, please. Overall, I really enjoyed this. I think I was a little nervous to watch it at first. Like, I was late to watching this for sure. It came out about 2 months ago, finished like a month ago, and I just watched it recently. And I was nervous post Monument Mythos Modern Day because I didn't love that. And, you know, it's always hard when someone you love moves on to the next thing. You know, when something you love comes to an end, sometimes you're hesitant to see what that artist has in store next. And I think it's rare in internet horror that you see people continue on from other series, but Manticore is the one to do it. Like, if anyone's going to do it successfully, it's going to be Manticore, because I just think they have so many stories to tell, if that makes sense. So I can't wait to see what's next. They just uploaded a video about Christopher Columbus that was very Monument Mythos core, that frankly I think if they just keep picking random historical events and making short films about them, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. And it was very funny. Like, it was classic early Monument Mythos funny, with the great, you know, Manticore analog horror aesthetic we love. So, you know, I'm excited to see more stuff like that, but I'm also excited to see more experimental stuff like Bodies. So, you know, let me know what you think. Are you a fan of Bodies of the Early Universe? You know, what's your favorite occurrence in the Monument Mythos? I don't know how else to describe it. Event happening. You know, if you have any series you would like me to cover, please let me know. I love covering our beloved creators like Manticore here, but I also love to highlight, you know, lesser represented, lesser seen artists within analog and digital horror. So please let me know. I found some great projects that way. That's how I found the McKinney Family Home Videos. And then I did the tape cover for McKinney Family Home Videos. So the world is crazy. Which, speaking of McKinney Family Home Videos, the VHS is still available for pre-order on Retro Release Video. Get down there, it's the link in my bio. I did the cover art for it, and it's the entire first season, and that's one of the best running analog horror series. You don't want to miss it, so please pre-order that and support Retro Release Video. They're great. They love analog horror. They've released so many analog horror series. I would love it if they released the Monument Mythos. I have no working relationship with them. I work directly with the McKinney Family Home Videos director. So I have no say. I am not sponsored. None of that. But I love them and what they're doing for analog horror. It's just another way that's legitimizing the genre. So snaps for that, right? But thank you so much for watching. I would like to thank my lovely YouTube members. We have the Creepypasta OCs up on screen. And then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob, Odini, and So-Called Punk. And then in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer. If you'd like to become a YouTube member for Old Glitch Witch, there's a little join button down below next to the subscribe button. But, you know, I just appreciate you watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing. That means the world. So, you know, Manticore's Plush and I, thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!